The stars had always been silent. For thousands of years, humanity pointed radio telescopes at the sky, sent probes into the darkness, and waited for a response that never came. Scientists theorized, philosophers debated, and ordinary people looked up at night with wonder. We were alone, or so we thought. Then came the breakthrough. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the EDF Prometheus, Earth's first and only interstellar battleship, watching as the stars blurred into streaks of light. At 42, she'd spent half her life in the Earth Defense Force, rising through the ranks during a time when Earth defense meant protection from other humans. Now it meant something entirely different. Captain, Lieutenant Rivera's voice crackled through her comm. We're approaching the coordinates. Dropping out of FTL within 3 minutes. Sarah tapped her comm. Acknowledged. All senior officers to the bridge. She turned from the viewport, her reflection ghosting against the reinforced glass. Dark eyes set in a face weathered by years of command decisions. The uniform she wore, with its slate gray fabric and silver insignia, had been designed for a new era of human history. An era that began 15 years ago, when the alien ship crashed in the Atacama Desert. No one had survived the crash, but the technology recovered changed everything. Faster than light travel, energy shields, weapons beyond human understanding, and most importantly, star charts marked with hundreds of inhabited worlds connected by ancient trade routes and complex diplomatic alliances. A galactic community that had existed for millennia, completely unknown to Earth. We should have stayed hidden. Sarah muttered to herself as she entered the bridge, where her crew worked with quiet efficiency. Humans had reversed-engineered the alien technology with remarkable speed. Too much speed, perhaps, driven by fear of what might be out there. Commander Jackson looked up from the tactical station as she entered. His massive frame seemed too large for the sleek console, but his fingers moved with surprising deftness across the controls. Captain, long-range sensors are picking up unusual activity at the coordinates. Multiple energy signatures consistent with large vessels. Sarah settled into the command chair. Show me. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying a distant star system, their destination. Jackson enhanced the image, revealing several objects in orbit around the system's fourth planet. 7 ships, he said. Configuration unknown. Any response to our hails? Sarah asked. Communications Officer Patel shook her head. Nothing, Captain. I've been broadcasting on all frequencies identified in the salvage database. Sarah drummed her fingers on the armrest. Earth had spent a decade designing and building the Prometheus in absolute secrecy. When the United Nations Space Command discovered that the crashed alien vessel had been a scout ship, and that its last transmission had contained information about Earth, the decision was made to venture beyond our solar system. Not to make contact, but to assess the threat. Are they military vessels? Sarah asked. Science Officer Wei adjusted his glasses. Difficult to say. They don't match any of the configurations in our database, but they're definitely armed. Energy readings suggest weapon systems on standby. Sarah nodded. This wasn't a peaceful exploration mission, despite what some of the UN representatives had claimed. The Prometheus carried Earth's most advanced weapon systems, a crew of 300 elite personnel, and explicit orders. Remain undetected, gather intelligence on the galactic community, and determine whether humanity faced an imminent threat. Prepare to drop out of FTL, Navigator Choi announced. 3, 2, 1. The starlight outside the viewports coalesced back into pinpoints as the Prometheus decelerated. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. Proximity alert, Jackson shouted. Unknown vessel dead ahead. Sarah gripped her chair. Evasive maneuvers. The Prometheus banked sharply, but not fast enough. There was a bone-jarring impact as something struck the ship's port side. Shields holding at 86%, reported Lieutenant Novak from engineering. Whatever hit us wasn't weapons fire. It was some kind of docking mechanism. We're being boarded, Sarah realized. She hit the shipwide comm. All security teams to emergency stations. This is not a drill. The bridge crew drew sidearms as the ship shuddered again. The main screen showed a sleek vessel 3 times the size of the Prometheus, its hull decorated with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change before their eyes. "Captain," Patel called out, "we're receiving a transmission." Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "Put it through." The screen changed to show a figure that appeared almost human, except for the iridescent scales covering its face and the 6-fingered hands folded before it. When it spoke, the ship's translation software rendered its words with only a slight delay. "Earth vessel," the alien said, "you have violated treaty space. Your emergence was predicted, but not in this manner. Explain your purpose." Sarah stood, squaring her shoulders. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Prometheus. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration." The alien's expression remained unreadable. "Your vessel is heavily armed. Your approach was clandestine. And your technology." It paused, head tilting. "Your technology is stolen from the Viridian Compact. By galactic law, that alone is an act of war." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "We've stolen nothing. The technology was recovered from a crashed vessel on our planet." "A convenient story," the alien replied. "One the Council will evaluate. For now, your ship is impounded, and your crew will be detained until representatives from the major powers arrive." Before Sarah could respond, the bridge doors hissed open. She spun around, weapon raised, only to freeze at the sight that greeted her. 3 beings stood in the doorway, unlike anything she had ever seen. Their bodies seemed to shift between solid and liquid states, tentacles one moment and limbs the next. Behind them stood 2 of her security officers, eyes vacant, weapons lowered. "Captain," one of the creatures said in perfect English, its voice resonating directly in her mind, "your species has made quite an entrance onto the galactic stage. Unfortunately, you couldn't have picked a worse time. The peace was already fracturing. Your battleship," it gestured around the bridge, "has just shattered it completely." Sarah's throat went dry as she stared at the shifting creatures. Her years of training hadn't prepared her for this. Nothing had. "Lower your weapons," she ordered her crew, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. "That's an order." Reluctantly, the bridge officers complied. Sarah kept her eyes on the alien delegation while addressing the figure still on the screen. "We came seeking knowledge, not conflict," she said. "If we violated your laws, it was done in ignorance, not malice." The liquid form being moved forward, its shape solidifying into something vaguely humanoid. "Captain Chen," it said, the words forming without visible lips, "I am emissary Thalvok of the Galactic Concord. Your ship will be escorted to Nexus Station for formal proceedings." The alien on the screen gave a gesture that might have been agreement. "The Concord has jurisdiction here, but the Viridian Compact will demand representation at these proceedings." Is your right," Thalvok acknowledged. The screen went dark. Commander Jackson stepped closer to Sarah, his voice low. "Captain, we have protocols for first contact situations. None of them involve surrendering our ship." "Look around you, Commander," Sarah replied quietly. "We're outgunned and surrounded by technology we barely understand. This isn't the time for heroics." She turned to Thalvok. "We'll cooperate, but I need assurances about the safety of my crew." "Your people will not be harmed," the emissary replied. "But understand this. Many factions will be interested in humanity's sudden appearance. Not all of them share the Concord's diplomatic approach." 2 hours later, Sarah found herself in what appeared to be a conference room aboard the alien vessel. The walls shimmered with a pearlescent quality, and the air tasted faintly of cinnamon. Across from her sat Thalvok and 2 other aliens, one with features resembling a reptile crossed with an insect, and another that looked almost human except for the ghostly translucence of its skin. "The recovery team has finished their preliminary assessment of your vessel," Thalvok said. "Most interesting. The reptilian alien chittered something, and Sarah's translator implant, hastily provided upon boarding, converted it to English. The weapon systems are crude adaptations of Viridian technology, but effective enough to cause significant damage. The humans clearly intended this as a warship. Of course, it's a warship, Sarah countered. We found alien technology on our planet with no explanation. We had no idea what was out there. The translucent being made a sound like wind through crystal. Fear is the expected response from primitive species, but building a battleship rather than a diplomatic vessel speaks to your intentions. Sarah leaned forward. With respect, you don't know our intentions. When the scout ship crashed 15 years ago, we learned two things: that we weren't alone, and that someone out there knew about us. Put yourself in our position. Falvok's form rippled. An interesting perspective, but it doesn't change the current situation. The Compact believes you've stolen their technology. The hegemony argues that Earth falls within their expansion zone. And the ascendancy. The emissary paused. They view any new spacefaring species as a potential threat to be contained. And what does the Concord believe? Sarah asked. That's the question we'll explore at Nexus Station, Falvok replied. Back on the Prometheus, which was now being towed through space by gravitational tethers, Lieutenant Rivera paced the engineering deck. Most of the crew had been confined to their quarters, but as chief engineer, she had managed to convince their guards that she needed to monitor the ship's systems. This is insane, she whispered to Science Officer Wei, who had been permitted to assist her. We're being dragged to who knows where by aliens we just met. Wei adjusted his glasses. What's insane is that they're using technology that shouldn't exist. Did you see how they interfaced with our systems? It was like they knew exactly how we designed them. Rivera glanced at the alien guard standing by the door, a towering figure with crystalline growths protruding from its shoulders. That's what worries me. How did they anticipate us so completely? The scout ship, Wei suggested. Maybe it wasn't a crash. Maybe it was a delivery. Before Rivera could respond, the ship's internal communications suddenly activated. A holographic projection of Captain Chen appeared in the center of the engineering bay. Attention all crew, Sarah's voice came through clearly. We are currently en route to a station called Nexus. I've been informed it serves as a neutral meeting ground for various galactic powers. We are to be guests, not prisoners, though our movements will be restricted. I've negotiated access to our ship systems so we can maintain critical functions. The hologram flickered. I know you're all concerned, confused, maybe even scared. I am too. But we represent Earth now. Every action we take, every word we speak, will shape how these civilizations view humanity. Stay strong, stay smart, and stay observant. Chen out. The projection disappeared, leaving the engineering deck in silence. She seems different, Rivera noted. Wei nodded slowly. You noticed it too. That wasn't just a standard address. It was a code, Rivera whispered, turning to one of the console screens to mask her words. The emphasis on maintain critical functions and stay observant. She wants us to keep something operational and gather intelligence. On the alien vessel, Sarah was being escorted back to her temporary quarters. The corridors seemed to shift and rearrange themselves as they walked. Her guide was a member of yet another species, tall and willowy with 4 arms and skin that changed colors with its movements. How many different civilizations are part of this Concord? Sarah asked. 27 major species hold full membership, the guide replied. Another 42 maintain associate status, and there are hundreds more who exist within Concord space, but choose not to participate in governance. Sarah tried to hide her shock. Hundreds of intelligent species, all coexisting in a political structure that spanned the galaxy. And how does Earth fit into this? The guide's skin flushed a deep blue. That is not for me to say. But I can tell you this. Your arrival has caused great concern among the founding 6. The timing is Unfortunate. What do you mean? The guide stopped outside a door that melted away at its approach. Rest now, Captain. Tomorrow you will begin to understand the true complexity of the situation you've entered. As the door reformed behind her, Sarah was left alone with the terrible weight of responsibility and the growing suspicion that Earth's emergence onto the galactic stage was neither accidental nor unexpected. Nexus Station loomed before the Prometheus, like a metallic spider web spun between the stars. Massive curved arms extended from a central hub, each one housing different environments for the various species that called the station home. As they approached, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of awe mingled with dread. The station dwarfed anything humans had ever built, a stark reminder of how far behind Earth truly was. Magnificent, isn't it? Thelvok said, standing beside her on the observation deck of the alien vessel. Built during the last convergence, nearly 3,000 of your years ago. What's a convergence? Sarah asked, not taking her eyes off the station. A rare alignment of interests among the major powers, the emissary replied. They don't last long. Sarah finally turned to face the shifting alien. And are we in a convergence now? No, Captain Chen. Thelvok's form rippled with what might have been amusement. Quite the opposite. We are in what some call a divergence. The peace treaty that has held for 7 centuries is unraveling. Old grievances resurface. Territorial disputes escalate. And now, the alien gestured toward the Prometheus. An unknown species appears with stolen technology and a warship. We didn't know. Ignorance will not save you, Thelvok interrupted. The council convenes in 6 hours. You should prepare your case. Back on the Prometheus, Commander Jackson had gathered the senior officers in the ship's mess hall. Their alien guards allowed them limited freedom within designated areas, seemingly confident in their ability to monitor all communications. Report, Jackson said quietly, his back to the crystalline guard by the entrance. Lieutenant Rivera leaned forward. Engineering has restored secure internal communications. We're routing everything through secondary systems to avoid detection. Good, Jackson nodded. Why? The science officer pushed a small device across the table. I've analyzed their scanning technology. This should create a blind spot around the bridge and engineering for about 15 minutes. But we can only use it once before they detect the interference. That's all we'll need, Jackson replied. Novak, what about weapons? Lieutenant Novak shook his head. Main weapons are locked down tight. But I've managed to bring the point defense lasers back online. They're not much, but they could provide a distraction. Jackson turned to Communications Officer Patel. Any luck decoding their transmissions? Some, she replied. They're using multiple encryption layers, but there are patterns. I intercepted communications between someone on this station and a group called the Ascendancy. They're very interested in us, specifically in our FTL drive. Which is curious, Wei added, because their FTL technology is far superior to ours. Jackson frowned. Unless what they're interested in isn't our adaptation of their technology, but something unique about how we implemented it. The quantum resonance matrix, Rivera said suddenly. Remember how we couldn't replicate the original power coupling? We had to design something completely new, something based on principles we already understood. Wei's eyes widened. A human solution to an alien problem. On Nexus Station, Sarah was escorted through vast halls, filled with species of all descriptions. Some resembled Earth creatures, reptilian, insectoid, avian, while others defied categorization entirely. Beings of pure energy contained in mechanical shells, crystalline entities that communicated through light patterns, collective organisms that seemed to flow like liquid while maintaining complex social hierarchies. Her guide, a slender humanoid with silver skin, led her to a chamber where representatives from the major powers awaited. She recognized Thelvok among them, along with the reptilian and translucent beings from earlier discussions. Captain Chen, announced a booming voice from a massive being seated at the center of a raised platform. I am High Arbiter Zonak of the Galactic Concord. You stand before representatives of all major galactic powers. Sarah squared her shoulders, feeling the weight of humanity's future resting upon her words. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. This is not a courtesy, growled a new voice. A red-scaled being with multiple eyes stepped forward. This is a tribunal. Your species has violated the segregation protocols by reverse engineering Viridian technology. The penalty is severe. Ambassador Volkar. Thalvok interjected. The humans were unaware of the protocols. Their isolation was complete until the incident. Ignorance does not excuse the danger they represent. Volkar replied. Look at what they've built. A warship. Their first act upon gaining interstellar capability was to create a weapon. Sarah felt her patience wearing thin. With all due respect, Ambassador, what would your people have done if unknown technology crashed on your world? Would you not have prepared to defend yourselves? The chamber fell silent. Then a melodic voice spoke from a being composed of intertwining filaments of light. The human raises a fair point, but it does not address the central concern. Timing. High Arbiter Zonak nodded gravely. Indeed, Captain Chen, are you aware that your emergence coincides precisely with predictions made by the Ascendancy 3 centuries ago? Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. No, I wasn't aware of that. They predicted that a new species would emerge during this divergence, continued Zonak, one that would tip the balance of power irrevocably. They called this species the Catalysts. On the Prometheus, Rivera was working feverishly at her console when an alert flashed across her screen. Commander, she called to Jackson, I'm detecting unusual energy readings throughout the station. Power levels are spiking. Jackson moved to her side. What kind of readings? Similar to our FTL drive when it's charging, but much more powerful. And it's not just one source. It's hundreds, all synchronized. Wade joined them, his face pale. The station isn't just a diplomatic hub. It's a weapon. Jackson's comm unit beeped. A secure channel. Jackson here. Commander, came Captain Chen's voice, tight with urgency. I need you to initiate Protocol Omega immediately. Jackson exchanged glances with Rivera and Wei. Protocol Omega was a last resort, a complete system purge and self-destruct sequence for the Prometheus. Captain, are you sure? Absolutely sure, Sarah replied. They don't want our ship. They want something inside it, something we didn't even know was there. Back in the council chamber, the tension had reached a breaking point. Representatives from various factions were shouting over each other, while Sarah stood at the center, piecing together fragments of truth from their accusations. The Viridian scout ship was sent to Earth deliberately, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. You wanted us to find it, to build this ship, to come here. Volkar's scales flared. Absurd. Why would we? Because you needed something you couldn't create yourselves, Sarah continued. The Ascendancy's prophecy wasn't about us emerging during the divergence. It was about us bringing something that would end your precious peace. High Arbiter Zonak rose to his full, imposing height. Captain Chen, you don't understand the forces at play here. The balance between powers has kept the galaxy from total war for centuries. A false peace built on suppression and control, Sarah countered. And now you're afraid because humans have accidentally created something that threatens that control. Thalvok's form rippled with agitation. The human vessel is powering up its systems. They're attempting to break free. All eyes turned to Sarah as alarms began to sound throughout the station. What have you done? Demanded Volkar. Sarah stood defiant as guards surrounded her. I've made a choice. The same choice humanity has always made when faced with powers that seek to control us. Through the chamber's viewport, the Prometheus suddenly blazed with light, its hull glowing with energy unlike anything the aliens had seen before. The quantum resonance matrix, humanity's imperfect solution, was reaching a state that the original designers had never intended. And in that moment, the true reason for the galactic power's fear became clear. Not what Earth's battleship was, but what it could become. The Prometheus pulsed with energy unlike anything the station's sensors had ever recorded. Ripples of blue-white light cascaded across its hull, distorting the space around it. On the bridge, Commander Jackson gripped his chair as the ship shuddered. "Status report," he barked. Rivera's fingers flew across her console. "The quantum matrix is operating beyond theoretical limits. It's not just powering up, it's transforming." "Transforming into what?" Wei asked, his voice barely audible over the rising hum of the engines. Before Rivera could answer, a new alarm sounded. "Multiple ships decloaking around the station," Patil announced. "Configuration unknown. They're not in our database or the alien files we accessed." Jackson moved to the tactical display. 7 vessels had appeared from nowhere, their design sleek and predatory. Unlike the ornate ships of the Concorde or the crystalline vessels of the Viridians, these were matte black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. "Who the hell are they?" Jackson muttered. The main view screen flickered to life without anyone activating it. A figure appeared, humanoid but clearly not human. Its skin was pale as moonlight, with intricate patterns that seemed to shift like circuitry beneath the surface. Eyes the color of burnished gold regarded them with ancient intelligence. "Commander Jackson," the being said, its voice resonating with a harmonic quality that made the air vibrate. "I am Archon Talon of the Precursor Ascendancy. Your Captain Chen has made a difficult choice, but the wrong one. The Protocol Omega sequence must be aborted." Jackson glanced at Rivera, who silently confirmed what they both suspected. This being had somehow bypassed all their security protocols. "How do you know about Protocol Omega? And how are you accessing our systems?" The Archon's expression remained serene. "We have been watching Earth for millennia." The scout ship was indeed sent deliberately, but not by the Viridians or the Concorde. They merely believed they had intercepted it. On Nexus Station, chaos had erupted in the council chamber. Representatives were fleeing as security forces mobilized. Through the viewport, Sarah could see the 7 black ships surrounding the station, their presence causing visible distress among the aliens. "Precursors," High Arbiter Jonak whispered, his towering form suddenly diminished by fear. "It cannot be. They withdrew from galactic affairs eons ago." Volkar's scales had paled to an ashen gray. "This is your doing," he hissed at Sarah. "Somehow you've summoned them." Falvok moved to Sarah's side, its fluid form solidifying into something more humanoid. "Captain Chen, you must understand what is happening. The Precursors are the original architects of faster-than-light travel. They seeded the galaxy with their technology before retreating beyond the galactic rim. Their return now, coinciding with your emergence. This changes everything." "The prophecy," Sarah said softly. "It wasn't about humans being catalysts. It was about us accidentally creating something that would draw them back." The chamber shook as energy beams lanced from the black ships, not at the station, but at the Prometheus. Instead of damaging it, the beams seemed to be interfacing with the ship's glowing hull, accelerating whatever transformation had begun. Sarah's comm unit crackled to life. "Captain," came Jackson's voice, "we have a situation." "The Precursors." "I see them," Sarah interrupted. "What's happening to our ship?" "The quantum matrix is evolving," Jackson replied. "Rivera thinks the Precursors designed the original technology with some kind of dormant protocol. When we modified it using Earth science, we accidentally triggered something." "The Archon says." "What Archon?" Sarah demanded. Before Jackson could answer, the viewport in the council chamber rippled like water. The same pale figure that had appeared on the Prometheus materialized in the chamber, causing the alien representatives to back away in reverent fear. "Captain Sarah Chen," the Archon said, inclining its head slightly. "You stand at the nexus point of history." Sarah's hand instinctively moved to her sidearm, though she knew it would be useless. "What do you want with my ship?" "With Earth." "Nothing that was not already set in motion ages ago," the Archon replied. "Humanity was not discovered by accident. You were hidden, protected, until you were ready. A murmur ran through the remaining council members. The Archon turned to address them all. The peace you so cherish was built on technological stagnation. The precursors withdrew to allow younger races to develop, but we left behind keys, technological seeds that would only activate when paired with the right minds. The Archon's golden eyes returned to Sarah. Human minds. On the Prometheus, Rivera had managed to stabilize the quantum matrix, though the transformation continued. The ship's internal systems were reconfiguring, displays showing schematics for technologies beyond human understanding. It's like the ship is upgrading itself, she told Jackson, but using our original modifications as a template. The human elements are being enhanced, not replaced. Why study the new schematics with growing excitement? This isn't just an upgrade. The precursors designed their technology to evolve when it encountered compatible innovation. We didn't steal their technology, we completed it. Back in the council chamber, the revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. Earth wasn't isolated by chance. You were waiting for us to develop on our own. 4 millennia, the Archon confirmed. Many worlds with promising species were discovered by the galactic community too early. They became client states, adopting the existing technologies without developing their own perspectives. Their potential was diluted. Volkar stepped forward, his fear giving way to anger. You used us all. The Compact, the Concord, we've been nothing but caretakers maintaining your technology until these primitives could activate it. Not caretakers, the Archon corrected. Students who stopped learning. The Viridian Compact once produced innovations that astonished even the precursors. Now you merely refine what already exists. You fear change rather than embrace it. Sarah felt a moment of clarity. That's why you're called the Ascendancy. You believe in technological ascension, evolution through innovation. Precisely, the Archon said, a hint of approval in its harmonic voice. And now we face a threat that cannot be overcome with stagnant thinking. As if summoned by his words, every display in the chamber and on the Prometheus suddenly showed the same image. A massive void spreading at the edge of the galaxy, swallowing stars and planets alike. It moved with purpose, consuming everything in its path. The darkness, whispered High Arbiter Jonak. The ancient texts spoke of it, but we thought it merely legend. It is very real, the Archon said grimly. And it has returned. This is why we needed the catalyst, a species that could see our technology with fresh eyes. The quantum resonance matrix your people created accidentally has become something new, something even we never envisioned. It may be our only hope against what comes. Sarah looked from the horrifying void on the screens to the Prometheus, still pulsing with energy, its transformation nearly complete. In the span of hours, humanity had gone from thinking itself alone in the universe to becoming the linchpin in a galactic-scale conflict with an entity of almost incomprehensible power. What exactly is my ship becoming? She asked. The Archon's expression was grave. Not just a battleship, Captain Chen. The first of a new kind of vessel, one that can pierce the darkness itself. And you, humanity, with your unique approach to our technology, will need to lead us all into that darkness. Around them, the station trembled as though the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for humanity's response to a threat millions of years in the making. Sarah stared at the horrifying void spreading across the galaxy display, her mind racing to process the sudden shift in everything she thought she knew. From first contact to the fate of the galaxy in less than 24 hours, she took a deep breath and faced the Archon. You're saying Earth is supposed to lead the fight against that? She gestured toward the consuming darkness. We've barely left our own solar system. We don't have the experience, the ships, or the technology. But you have the perspective, the Archon replied. And now, you have the key. It gestured toward the Prometheus, which had stopped pulsing and now gleamed with a quiet, steady radiance. On the bridge of the transformed vessel, Commander Jackson watched in awe as new systems came online. Displays showed capabilities that defied human understanding, yet the controls remained intuitive, almost as if the ship had been redesigned with human operators in mind. "It's ready," Rivera said, her voice hushed with wonder. "Whatever it's become, it's ready." Why study the readouts with growing excitement? The quantum matrix has stabilized. It's created some kind of, I don't even have words for it, a field that exists partially outside normal spacetime. Jackson opened a channel to the station. "Captain, the transformation is complete. The ship is operational, but it's different." Back in the council chamber, the mood had shifted from fear to a tense, expectant silence. The representatives of the various galactic powers watched Sarah closely, their ancient rivalries temporarily set aside in the face of extinction. "This is too convenient," Sarah said, narrowing her eyes at the Archon. "You've manipulated events across millennia, guided our development from the shadows, all to create a weapon against this darkness. Why should I trust you?" High Arbiter Jonak rumbled in agreement. "The human raises a valid concern. The precursors vanished from galactic affairs eons ago, leaving only fragments of their technology. Why return now, precisely when this threat emerges?" The Archon's serene expression faltered for just a moment. "Because we failed," it admitted. "The darkness is not new to us. We encountered it before, fought it to a stalemate, and believed we had contained it. We were wrong." Around them, the station shuddered as another section of the galactic map was consumed by the void. "It's accelerating," Volkar hissed. "At this rate, it will reach the core systems within a standard month." Sarah's comm unit chimed. "Captain," Jackson's voice came through, "we're picking up new readings from the void. It's not just consuming matter. It's absorbing energy, information, everything." The Archon nodded grimly. "It learns from what it devours. Each civilization it consumes makes it more adaptive, more difficult to counter. That is why we needed something it had never encountered before." Sarah looked around at the representatives of ancient spacefaring races, then back to the image of her transformed ship. A decision point that would affect the fate of not just humanity, but countless species across the galaxy. "I need to speak with my crew," she said firmly. Minutes later, in a private chamber, Sarah faced a holographic projection of her senior officers gathered on the Prometheus Bridge. "The situation has evolved," she said, the understatement drawing tight smiles from her team. "I need your assessment. Can we trust these precursors? And can we operate the ship in its current state?" Jackson's expression was grim. "Trust is a strong word, but their story checks out against the data we've accessed. As for the ship, it's strange, Captain. The new systems are beyond our technology, but they respond to us like they were designed for human use." "Because they were," Wei interjected. "The precursors left technological seeds across the galaxy, waiting for species with the right cognitive architecture, I suppose. The scout ship that crashed on Earth was carrying dormant technology specifically keyed to human neural patterns." Rivera nodded. "It's like a lock that could only be opened with a human key. When we modified their FTL drive using our scientific principles, we completed a circuit they designed millions of years ago." Sarah processed this, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. "And this darkness, can we fight it?" "The ship's new capabilities are extraordinary," Rivera replied. "We've run simulations. The quantum field generator can theoretically create a containment barrier around portions of the void. Not enough to stop it completely, but enough to slow its advance while more permanent solutions are developed." "So we'd be buying time," Sarah said. "For the entire galaxy," Jackson confirmed. Sarah took a deep breath and returned to the council chamber, where the Archon and Galactic representatives awaited. The void on the display had consumed another star system during their brief discussion. "Earth will help," she announced, "but not alone. This isn't just humanity's fight." The Archon inclined its head. "Of course, the precursor fleet stands ready." "Not just the precursors," Sarah insisted, turning to face the other representatives. "Every species, every world. This threat doesn't discriminate between old powers and new ones. High Arbiter Jomak stepped forward. The Concord will mobilize its defense forces. The Viridian Compact will provide technical support, Volkar added, though his tone suggested reluctance. Other representatives voiced their support. Ancient rivalries temporarily set aside in the face of annihilation. Sarah felt a moment of hope. Perhaps this crisis could forge a new kind of unity. "It is decided then," the Archon said. "The combined fleets will assemble at the Veil Nebula, the last natural barrier before the void reaches populated space." Sarah nodded. "The Prometheus will lead the advance force. We'll deploy the quantum barrier to slow the darkness while your scientists develop a permanent solution." As preparations began, Sarah returned to her ship, now docked at Nexus Station. The familiar corridors felt subtly different, humming with new energy. The crew watched her with a mixture of awe and uncertainty as she made her way to the bridge. "Status report," she said, settling into the command chair that now seemed to adjust perfectly to her form. "All systems operational," Rivera reported. "The quantum barrier generator is ready for deployment." "Navigator Choi, set course for the Veil Nebula," Sarah ordered. As the Prometheus disengaged from the station, the precursor vessels fell into formation around it. One by one, ships from other species joined them, a hastily assembled armada preparing to face the void. "Captain," Wei called from the science station, his voice tight with alarm. "I'm detecting anomalous readings from the precursor flagship." Sarah frowned. "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures, similar to the void itself," Wei replied. "It's faint, but it's there." Before Sarah could respond, the main view screen activated. The Archon appeared, its expression as serene as ever. "You've discovered our secret," it said simply. "Sooner than expected." Sarah felt ice in her veins. "What have you done?" "What was necessary," the Archon replied. "The darkness cannot be destroyed, Captain Chen. We learned that at great cost, it can only be directed." Understanding dawned with horrifying clarity. "You're not fighting it. You're using it." The Archon's golden eyes seemed to glow brighter. "For millions of years, we have guided its hunger away from populated sectors. But such control requires sacrifice. Worlds, even entire systems, carefully selected to feed it while sparing others. You've been feeding it," Sarah whispered, revulsion rising in her throat. "And now, with your ship's unique quantum field technology, we can guide it with unprecedented precision." The Archon continued. "The human innovation we sought was never about destroying the darkness. It was about controlling it better than ever before." Around them, the precursor ships suddenly changed position, energy weapons charging as they surrounded the Prometheus. "I won't let you use my ship for this," Sarah said, her voice steel. "You misunderstand, Captain," the Archon replied, genuine regret in its harmonic voice. "The choice is not yours to make. It never was." As the precursor ships prepared to fire, the Prometheus's quantum field suddenly activated on its own, enveloping the ship in a shimmering barrier. Inside the bridge, displays flickered with new information, schematics, coordinates, escape vectors. "The ship is helping us," Rivera said in disbelief. Wei's eyes widened as he studied the data. "It's more than that. The quantum field is revealing the third option, neither fighting the void nor controlling it, but communicating with it." Sarah looked from the approaching precursor weapons to the new data streaming across her console. A decision point unlike any humanity had faced before. The fate of not just Earth, but countless civilizations, depended on what she did next. "All hands, battle stations," she ordered, her voice steady, despite the terror and wonder churning inside her. "We're going into the D-The Prometheus surged forward, its quantum field rippling with energy as the precursor ships opened fire. Beams of concentrated energy splashed against the barrier, dissipating harmlessly as the ship accelerated. "The field is holding," Rivera reported, her fingers dancing across her console. "But I don't know for how long." "We don't need long," Sarah replied. "Navigator Choi, maximum speed toward the void perimeter." "Captain, are you sure about this?" Jackson asked, his voice low. "We have no idea what's inside that thing." Sarah met his gaze. "No, we don't. But we know what's out here. Ancient powers playing games with entire civilizations, feeding worlds to this darkness to save others. There has to be another way." The Prometheus streaked through space, the combined fleet falling into disarray behind them. Some ships pursued, others held position, confusion evident in their movements. The void loomed ahead, a writhing absence against the starfield. "Energy signatures from multiple vessels," Patel announced. "The Concorde and Viridian ships are moving to intercept the precursors." "They're fighting each other?" Jackson asked. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. The Archon's revelation changed everything. The galactic powers just learned they've been pawns for millions of years. Wei looked up from his station. "Captain, I've analyzed the data the ship provided. The darkness isn't just consuming, it's transforming. Matter and energy that enter it don't disappear. They're converted into something else." "What kind of something else?" Sarah asked. Before Wei could answer, the Prometheus reached the edge of the void. The view screen showed only emptiness ahead, not the black of space, but a true absence, a place where reality itself seemed to thin. "All hands, brace for transition," Sarah ordered. She gripped her chair as the ship shuddered, the quantum field flaring brilliantly as they crossed the threshold. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound, no sensation, as if they'd ceased to exist entirely. Then reality reasserted itself, and the bridge crew stared in stunned silence at what the view screen revealed. Space, but not as they knew it. Stars burned in impossible colors, their light bending in ways that defied physics. Structures of unimaginable scale drifted through the void. Not ships or stations, but something more organic, more alive. "My God," Wei whispered. "It's not destruction. It's transcendence." The Prometheus drifted forward, its quantum field now pulsing in rhythm with the strange energy surrounding them. Displays filled with new data, the ship's systems interfacing with the environment in ways the human crew could barely comprehend. "Captain," Rivera called, her voice filled with wonder. "I'm detecting thousands of energy signatures similar to our quantum field. They're communicating with each other." Sarah stood, approaching the view screen. "Can we communicate with them?" "I think." Rivera hesitated. "I think we already are. The ship, it's translating for us." The view screen shifted, showing not the alien space around them, but a rendering of information. Patterns of light and darkness flowed together, gradually resolving into something more comprehensible, a history, told in images and emotions rather than words. The crew watched in silence as the story unfolded. The darkness had not begun as destruction, but as evolution, a collective of entities that had transcended physical form, existing in a state between dimensions. They had not sought to consume the galaxy, but to transform it, to elevate other beings to their state of existence. But the precursors, fearing what they didn't understand, had attacked first, millennia ago. The conflict had wounded the collective consciousness, fragmenting it, twisting its purpose. What had been an invitation became consumption without comprehension, hunger without end. "They're not destroying," Sarah murmured. "They're trying to heal themselves. Every world, every being they consume becomes part of them, but the pattern is broken. They can't complete the transformation." "And our quantum field," Wei said, understanding dawning. "It resonates with their original pattern. It reminds them of what they once were." The Prometheus drifted deeper into the transformed space, the strange structures moving around them in what seemed almost like curiosity. The ship's quantum field expanded, interfacing more deeply with the energies of the void. "Captain," Rivera said, her voice tight with urgency, "the ship is proposing a solution, but it would mean staying here, becoming a permanent bridge between our reality and theirs. A bridge for what purpose? Sarah asked. Communication. Understanding. Rivera looked up from her console. The field can help restore their original pattern, remind them of what they were meant to be. Not destroyers, but elevators, beings that help others transcend physical limitations. Jackson shook his head. So instead of running from them or fighting them, we'd be helping them. After they've consumed entire worlds. They consumed because they were broken, Wei argued. What if we could help them remember their original purpose? Sarah paced the bridge, the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. If we stay, what happens to Earth? To the rest of the galaxy? According to these projections, Rivera said, studying the data streams, the consumption would stop. The darkness would withdraw, reshape itself using our quantum field as a template. But it would take time. Years, maybe decades. And we'd be stuck here, Jackson said. Sarah nodded slowly. We would. But Earth would be safe. The galaxy would be safe. The bridge fell silent as the crew contemplated their situation. 300 humans, impossibly far from home, facing a choice that would affect countless civilizations. I can't make this decision for all of you, Sarah finally said. Every person on this ship deserves a vote. Within the hour, the results were clear. The crew of the Prometheus, scientists and soldiers who had volunteered for a mission of exploration and defense, chose to stay, to become the bridge between realities, the healers of an ancient wound in the cosmos. The ship sent a final transmission to the waiting fleets beyond the void's edge, a comprehensive explanation of what they'd discovered and what they intended to do. The quantum field would remain active, Sarah explained, maintaining a channel of communication even as they ventured deeper into the transformed space. This isn't an ending, she told her crew as the Prometheus disengaged its return protocols. It's the beginning of the greatest exploration humanity has ever undertaken. 1 year later, a small vessel approached the edge of what was once called the darkness. Now it pulsed with colors visible even to normal space, its boundaries no longer expanding but shifting, changing in response to the quantum field at its heart. On the bridge of this diplomatic ship stood representatives from Earth, the Concord, the Viridian Compact, and a dozen other species, all watching nervously as they prepared to cross the threshold. "Are you sure it's safe?" asked the human ambassador, a woman who had once served under Captain Chen on a different vessel. Their guide, one of the precursors who had broken from the ascendancy after the revelation of their betrayal, nodded solemnly. The latest transmissions from the Prometheus confirm that the transformation is progressing as predicted. The barrier is permeable now to those who come in peace. The diplomat squared her shoulders. Then let's not keep them waiting. The ship crossed into the transformed space, colors washing over them as reality shifted. Ahead, impossible structures drifted in patterns of mathematical beauty. And at the center of it all, still recognizable despite the changes it had undergone, floated the Prometheus. Its hull now rippled with the same energy that filled this pocket universe, the quantum field having gradually merged with the ship itself. As they approached, the view screen activated, showing the bridge of the Earth vessel. Captain Sarah Chen smiled at them, her appearance subtly altered, her eyes reflecting the impossible colors that surrounded them, her uniform now moving like liquid crystal. "Welcome to what we've been calling the Ascension Zone," she said. "The beings here have a lot to share with the galaxy, and much to make amends for." The ambassador leaned forward. "The Concord Council is cautiously optimistic about establishing relations. They want to know if it's true, what your transmissions claimed. That the beings here can help elevate consciousness itself." Sarah's smile widened. "That and more. We've only begun to understand what's possible here. The merging of matter and energy, of thought and form, it's beyond anything humanity ever imagined." She gestured, and the view screen expanded to show more of the Prometheus. Crew members moved through sections of the ship now open to the swirling energies of the zone, their bodies partially translucent, minds connected to each other and to the greater consciousness that surrounded them. "We remain human," Sarah assured them, seeing the shock on the visitors' faces. "But also something more. We've become a bridge between what humanity is and what it could become." The ambassador swallowed hard. "And the danger, the consumption of worlds." "Ended," Sarah said firmly. "What was broken is healing. What was hunger has become invitation. No world will be taken, only offered a choice." As the diplomatic vessel docked with the transformed Prometheus, Sarah prepared to greet the first visitors from home. In the year since they'd crossed the threshold,